audio real quick. Yeah. And I promise everybody I'll get a better microphone at some point so we can. So I don't sound quite so lame here. If Dustin will stop texting me. Oh, never mind. That was my sister. All right. So, when last we left our intrepid explorers, we had kicked off the pipeline to basically launch the rest of the environment. So, like, we had deployed the VPC the battery VPC, and we deployed the operations VPC, and then we deployed the transit gateway that connects the two of them together. And then we ran the TerraGrant deploy again, just over all of it. And what that did is it compared the existing infrastructure against the expected infrastructure. And of course, that meant that we didn't have the routes that need to be added. We also didn't have like the endpoints. We didn't have the cluster and all that jazz. So that's basically what happened while I was at lunch. And it probably took a while. Actually, it took 20 minutes. I just saw up there in the thing that it took 20 minutes to run this. So, yeah, this is basically what it did. It deployed all this stuff into the environment and made it available. So now we have these. So if I go over here to AWS, obviously we still have our VPCs here, but if I go and look at the Elastic Kubernetes service, ta-da, we have, actually, you know what, why is this should be dark. I am morally opposed to bright screens. Why isn't this dark? It should be dark. Well, let's fix that. Did that do it? There, that did it. All right. So let's do that again. Okay. Now that we don't look lame using those light backgrounds like some sort of non-IT pleb. All right, so yeah, we have the cluster here. It exists, and then if we go in and check under compute, we can see that there is a node. There's only one right now. It's got one node in the node group. And then if we went to EC2, which is, remember, EC2s are basically like virtual machines. And then we click here. Why is it? Oh, I guess it's just like it is. Anyway, we have SO2 nodes here, and it's basically the one virtual machine, and that's how that works. So, in any case, we now have a node group. So, what we were saying earlier is now that we have redeployed the environment and it's there and it exists, I do have this Helm, file that I'm planning to use to kick off and deploy a bunch of Helm charts later. So one of the things we want to do is as simple of a deployment as possible to just confirm that we can deploy a container into that EKS environment and that it does run and functions as we expect. What I had done is I'd looked through a few different files, and we had found, I think it was this one. No. This one, here we go. This was the article that I'd found that had a really simple Nginx deployment that, it's the container and then the service that connects that container to quote unquote output. So this notionally should exist, and yeah, that's basically how that works. So what I wanted to do is run this command right here, which should come back with almost nothing, but what I'd like to see is if the Helm container that we're using right now has kubectl on it. And if it does, awesome, we'll move on, and we're basically going to replicate this article, but we'll do it in our code. And instead of executing commands, what we will do is we will have them be scripts here that we execute as part of our CI/CD. So the example of that is in this case, the way this is going to work, and we'll just actually let's walk through CI/CD from the beginning, because that way you can understand what we're doing. So basically, GitLab has this thing called CI/CD, GitLab CI YAML. And what GitLab CI does is it reads in these YAML files, and it kind of defines a set of jobs and when they should execute and all that. And all these YAML files actually all get read in as one ginormous monolithic YAML file with like some exceptions. But generally, you could think of all the stuff you're writing as just being one giant file. We are doing it in kind of or I'm doing it, I guess I should say, in a kind of a weird way here, because I've got some include jobs and stuff like that kick off. That's actually why you end up with something that looks like this, where we've got all these jobs here, and then there's this downstream that kicks off all these extra jobs over here. That happens because I have a job to include jobs, and you'll see that in just a second when we get to it. But the entry point for all this is the .gitlab-ci YAML that's in the root folder. This is where you have to start everything. So right here I've defined a few stages, and I've got all these includes here and some basic inputs. Now this component, you can kind of ignore this. This is the way that GitLab is loading OpenTofu now, which is a replacement for Terraform. And unless you're really involved with that kind of stuff, it's probably not anything you really need to care about. This is more information than it really is going to help you. The only reason it matters is because right off the bat, we've got a couple extends here. Basically, there's a format job that extends OpenTofu format, which is where we get this format here, and that's a linting job. It just checks to make sure that the Terraform that is written in here is formatted correctly. And then there's a validate job that just checks to make sure any Terraform I have in here is actually functional. So theoretically, at this stage in the pipeline, the validate stage, if and I have actually seen this a few times. I've got a couple jobs. In fact, actually, I'll go to one and I'll show you what it looks like. But format will definitely come back. That happens all the time, where it tells me I've got the wrong number indents or something in my Terraform, and so it won't work. Validate's more like this is more of a formatting thing. It works, but it looks ugly. And this is it doesn't work, and then it stops everything. And then, of course, the display vars, like we've talked about before, this is just letting me know when the job ran, what the settings were, so I can duplicate them if needed. Let me pop back to pipelines, because I will definitely have some formats that failed within the last couple days or so. I did not realize I'd run that many jobs over the last few days. But here we go. So here's one that failed. And this is what it looks like when it fails. Basically, it comes back and says, hey, I'm looking at this Terraform modules, EKS cluster role main.tf, and it says what you have is this. What you should have is this. And the reason for that is, if you look, I've got this line right here commented out. Basically, when this line is not commented out, these two are side by side, and the way Terraform likes formatting, let's actually just go to that one. What was it? EKS node group role. Okay. So Terraform modules. Yes, node group role main. All right. So, like, if I had some random variable here, like that, Terraform likes for these to be even like that. So that basically that would pass muster as far as formatting concern goes. In fact, you can actually see that down here where I've got role and policy arn, and there's that space there. It's to make the equals line up because it's prettier, easier to read. That's basically the idea. However, what I had done here is I had commented out the next line, which was this manage policy arns. And so if I did that, so that line is now commented out. It's not red, and that means that this line now has all this space here, and that's too much space. That's ugly. It'd be the same as far as the formatting is concerned. It'd be the same as doing that. So basically, that's it. That was the issue. It looked ugly. Formatting threw an error about it, and that was what the error was about. So let me get rid of that. Okay. And so that's how you read it, is it says, hey, delete this line and replace it with this line, is what they effectively mean when they say that. And you can see that I actually did that in another file too, this EKS node group role and the EKS cluster role. For the same reason, I had this manage policy arns listed in there for them, and turns out I didn't need that, so I got rid of it. And that is that. So in any case, getting back to where we were, so we've just run this job. It passed. We've got our cluster. It's up and running. So now what I want to do is test this. I want to run this. Oh, that's right. I was walking through GitLab CI. So anyway, GitLab CI. This is the first job, the second job, and then this workflow rule. What this does is it says basically the entire GitLab CI set of rules will only run, will basically not run if there is a merge request event. It's kind of hard to explain what it is, but basically what I'm doing here is there are times where, like, if I create a merge request and then I created a commit, I would actually get two pipelines running, because technically a merge request is a commit. So you would get a merge request and you would get a commit, and you'd have two of the exact same pipeline. So what this does is it basically says, hey, don't run on the merge request event, only run on the commit branch. So anytime I commit, this is going to run, and that's basically what that means. Anyway, so right here, these templates, these are the SAST and secret detection type things that I'm running right now, and those are part of that pipeline that we were just looking at earlier. But these three files, variables, tfdocs, and environments, these are a little bit different. So let's start off with tfdocs, because that's actually the real easy one. tfdocs basically runs during that build stage, and it unpacks this Terraform docs, which actually exists in another folder in here. We don't need to worry about it. And then it just runs that shell script. And the result is all these README files that it then packs up and saves. Now, what this is I actually wrote this shell script, and it takes this Terraform docs command and iterates over every folder that's under the Terraform modules folder, and creates a README file for each one of these. That's basically how I got the updated READMEs in each of these guys, like I was pointing out earlier, these things. This is the job that creates that. See, it runs in the build stage, and it's called update docs. And I don't think you'll see it in here because it's already run, but yeah, see, if we went back, let's see, merge. I think this is the last one before the merge. It'll be this one, I bet. There we go. See, build stage, update docs, and if we look at it, this is all the stuff that was created, and this is where I went earlier and downloaded those artifacts and just replaced all those files. So yeah, that's what that job does. And then of course, going back to GitLab CI YAML. Let me close some of these things up so it's easier to read. Okay. So so that's the TF jobs one. The other one here is the variables. That's the next one we'll look at. Variables is this file, and all this does is set up the variables. So and it creates that that job, the display vars job that we were looking at earlier that I showed you, that has basically everything I've run and what the value is. Oops, I need to fix that. So basically it just runs and spits out a couple things here I need to fix. It runs and spits out all these variables so that, like, if I've got any question about what I was doing on a particular job, I can just come in here and see, oh, it was development and I was deploying network/TGW. And in fact, an example of that would be display vars. So if I had any questions, I could come and look at this job, and sure enough, I can see it was a development run, so I ran it manually, and I was deploying it against, running it against network TGW, and the action was an apply. So that's what I was doing. And so that way, no matter how long it's been since I run a job, I can always go back and look at any job and know exactly what I was doing when that job ran. So that's what that's for. And then all these are just defining the variables. What this does is when you go to create a new pipeline, these right here, environment, the drop down, the empty values for subcomponent application, the different actions that can be taken, all this stuff is defined right here. So I'm basically saying, hey, the environment, here's the description for the environment, here's the default value, and then here are the options that you have to choose from, and then the same thing on down below, like what are the different things. And that's how that works. All right, next thing, we have environment YAML. Okay, so environments YAML. What this does is it checks a few things. So you can see there's a set of rules here. This defines when this happens. So during the environment stage, this will trigger these other two jobs. That's why they actually show like they do under the environment section as downstream jobs. It just so happens that the trigger is targeting a local file. It could have just as easily targeted a file in a whole other GitLab repository or something. But this says, okay, if the environment is defined at all, so if I go into that drop down and I select development, this will run, because it's basically saying, hey, you picked development, you intended for this to trigger, and then it says, otherwise, if the environment is empty, subcomponent is empty, and application is empty, so if this got run from like a commit, then check and see if there were any changes to the development directory at all. And if there were, as compared to the main branch, run, basically include these two files and go. Otherwise, this next one kind of does the same thing, except for its trigger is targeting all of the component ci.yaml files. And again, it only happens if all of these are empty. So it only happens basically if this is a commit run and things have been changed in folders underneath development as compared to main. So that means that, like, if I come into development and say under boundary, I make a change to this VPC file, well, that will trigger, because it's under development and it's under a subfolder, something has been changed as compared to main. It will kick it off, and we'll get a new job out of that. Now, I've got a couple commits here. I think this is the only thing that I've changed where yeah, this Helm YAML and the variables YAML. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this. And what you will see is when this job kicks off, because there's going to be a job automatically get kicked off, those, when environments gets called, it's going to look at this and say, hey, wait, environment's not defined, or development's not defined in environment, so this job doesn't apply. Or, well, let me come back to that. So it's going to look at by component, it's going to say, hey, all these things are empty, but nothing under here has changed, so this one doesn't apply. Same thing up here, it's not a development job, so that doesn't apply. All these things are empty, but nothing under development has been changed, so this one doesn't apply. So what we're only going to see are the handful of those other jobs. So this is the one that's running right now. And you can see it's just validate and test, nothing else. None of the files under Terraform modules has been changed. And if we look at the TF docs, you can see that this one only runs if something under TF modules has changed. It hasn't, so this one isn't running. The other one that we were talking about earlier, the environments, only works if something under development or under the development subfolders have changed, and none of those are true. So that's why we get a really simple basic test, and that's that. So now what we could do is we could go in and kick off a manual job and say, hey, main test app development, and our applications right now is just applications. Which I'm not sure if that'll work or not. Now that I think about it, I haven't tested it. Ah, so you go. We got a development job triggered here. So anyway, I will let that run right now. The other way to kick it off so that it kicks off every time is we could come back and make a very easy change. What we will change is we will create a folder in here, and we will call this X, and then we'll create a file in there as just a placeholder. Alright, and before we commit it, come back and look, and we've got the one job that's running now. So we're going to go ahead and commit this guy. Take a little bit, and now we see we've got that running. So this is basically how that works. So we made a commit, automatically kicks off, and we can look in here and see that what got kicked off was development by component, because we didn't change anything at the root development level. So basically, really, that would only kick off if we had made a change to these Terraform files here, or if we added a new folder, it would kick off. But since everything we did was under applications, it's going to do it quote unquote by component, and that means that that's all we're going to see. Let me pop back and see if that other job ran yet. It is running. Okay, so this Terragrant plan here is running because we kind of forced it to kick off, but this helm validates what we actually care about. So we'll hold on to that for a little bit. Oh, and I think I probably need to go through, because one of the issues that I'm going to have right now is this. Like, we really didn't need a Terra Grunt plan to kick off, so I think what we just did will fix that. I think on this other one, we're only going to see the Helm validate run because it's running by component, so there are no other things to run. But that means that, okay, I'll come back to that in a second. So that means probably under here, I probably need to, I don't know. I need to think about that. Because basically what's happening right now is when it kicks off those jobs, like I just did where I specified application, it basically included both this file. I think what that means is that under environments, I probably need to create a separate set of jobs just for Helm, as opposed to, yeah, I think that's probably what I need to do. Because basically what ended up happening is that when this kicked off, it included both of these files, which is not what we want. If subcomponent, or is it? I don't know. Oh, yeah. It's because development was defined. So basically, this whole thing got included. What I want is if development is defined and application is defined as anything other than being null. So if application is null or empty and development is defined, then run this with just Terra Grunt. And I want to create another job that's the opposite. If subcomponent is empty and development is defined, run Helm. Otherwise, yeah, that's what I want. So, you know what? Now's a good time to talk about that. So let's just go ahead and do that. So, I need to create a new job here, and so I'm just these are gonna be almost the same. So I'm just gonna do a copy, paste. All right. Okay, and then we're going to make some name changes here too. So this one is what are we going to call this guy? Terraform. There, we'll call it that, Terraform all, and we'll call this one Terraform by component, or actually Terra Grunt, that's what we should call it. And then this new one that we're creating, we will call Helm all. And get rid of that. And get rid of that. So what we have done is created a Terra Grunt all that only calls the Terra Grunt file, and a Helm all that only calls the Helm file. And the reason we are leaving this one like this is because each one of those component CIs only calls what that subfolder needs. So like if we look at application here, it calls Helm. If we were to look at boundary here, it calls Terra Grunt. So that's already sorted, that's taken care of for us. What we want to do is change it here. And what we want is if we only want this to happen if environment is development and if application is null, or not null but empty. add a space there. So if I specify development and application is empty, then it'll run this. Think about this for a second. Is that what I want? Or I want an or in here. Or if subcomponent is not null. Now, I'm not sure that this is the correct formatting. Let me think about this for a second. So, if the environment is development and if application is empty, or if the subcomponent is not null or not empty. Yeah, I think that's what I want. Now, I'm not sure if I need to, if I need to go back and redo these parents, so I have another set of parents on the outside of this or not, but we'll go with this for now. So in this next one, basically I'm going to do kind of the same thing again. Oops. I'm going to say if the environment is empty and the subcomponent is empty, or if application is not empty. So basically what I'm saying is if I run a job and development and application are both empty, then I want it to, because what that means is that I've run it by hand. I've specified that I want it to run against development, and I'm not specifying a specific application. But but what's going to happen is if I run this and I specify an application, do I still want it to run? Because there are going to be situations where we want Helm to run, but we don't care about that running. You know what? Nah, I'm going to get rid of all this because I don't care if it runs or not. Yeah, we're fine. I'm just going to let it do its thing. The reason is, it's kind of what I was thinking is that I'm going to run into situations like this one right here where it had to run the plan first and then it ran the validate. And I don't really care about this plan. But that's not really going to be an issue going forward because I'm going to be getting these automatic jobs kicked off where it's doing it by component. And right here you can see that development by component, it only ran the applications, which is what I want. So let's find out why this failed. Okay. Queue control not found. All right. Well, that's what we wanted to check, is whether or not that was going to work. So, okay. So that means we're going to need a slightly different image, or we're going to need to set up cube control in order to make this work. So, all right. Just keep everything as it is right now, and I'm going to Google. Oh, look at there. I know what the problem is. The image doesn't have it installed. What I want to know is if there's an image out there that no, that's not what I'm looking for. Right, here we go. So there's a Bitnami image here that has kubectl installed. All right, let's actually. This is a good example. Let's redo this real quick because I'm going to use this image. Okay. So I'm going to create a new job real quick that's specifically for the kubectl, and we'll just change everything over to point to it temporarily until I get that sorted, and then we'll come back and set up the Helm later. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is go in and modify my variables, because I do not have a kubectl image defined. So I'm going to call cube image, and that's it. So now I have that. I'm going to add that to my displays down here. So I'll be able to see it. So that now exists. Then what we'll do is we'll come up here to Helm, and temporarily we will change this image. Yeah, temporarily. Kubectl image, and we will not run that Helm version. So basically what this is going to do is it'll load this kubectl image. The entry point is bash basically, and it is going to run kubectl get services, which is what we want. So, and by the way, this extends. What this does is it, so like up here, I created this check apps, like .check apps job. Basically what this is, it's kind of like a reusable snippet of code that can be reused anywhere. So down here, by extending it, what I've done is I've added this to it. So it would be the same as if I copied all this and pasted it in here. The reason I did that is because, like you see with TerraGrunt, I did the same thing, check environment, blah, blah, blah. And then down here, every one of these other jobs has that check environment in it. It's because I want this to be exist for all the jobs. So I'm going to have every one of them is going to use the same image, and there's going to be the same before script for every one of them, which basically runs and says, hey, my environment is this, my component is set to this, and my TerraGrunt version is this, blah, blah, blah. It's just something I throw in before any of these jobs so that I'm constantly checking to validate and verify that what I think is there. And like TerraGrunt version, stuff like that. It's just one of those things you pick up over time that kind of saves you some grief. So let's switch to here. All right. And what we should see here in a little bit is the same thing we did before. It'll be a long list of like, ran this, and then we'll have our whatever job out here, the Helm validate chart job, which isn't really going to be Helm validate, but that's what I'm calling it for now. A lot of times I'll get started. I actually intended there to be some sort of validation, like linting, that I was going to add to this, and I still will at some point. But for right now, that's that. Yep. So anyway, let me. I'm still doing this thing. While this runs, I'm going to grab me some drink. Fresca is a manly drink. I don't care what my wife says. All right, failed again. All right. Let's see. How did it fail? All right. Well, good stuff. Okay. So we got logged in. It ran services, and basically it's telling us it can't connect. It can't get information. So fine. That's this is not surprising. This is kind of what we wanted. So the next thing we need to know then is so Cube Control is installed. So that worked. Now we need to basically set up the rest of this stuff. Oh, give me a second. I think I just got an email. That was just a reminder. Okay. All right. So what all do we need here? So this IAM role is the one we already have, so that's good. Okay. All that's done. This exists. It's the AKS role that we've already created. So that's there. So now we need to create a simple deployment using kubectl. Alright, so we can do all this. Let me go ahead and create this. So this is going to be nginx deployment.yaml. So we're going to come here, new file. Now we'll rename that to whatever this other one is. This one is called nginx service.yaml. Okay. All right, so both of those files now exist, or they will once I commit them. I think I'm missing something. Let me go back up here to the top. All right. Ah, okay. This is what we need right here. All right. So AWS EKS. All right. Let's add this guy right here. And give me 1 second. I gotta send a text message. Hey Dustin, are you listening and are you at site? Actually, I'm going to text you, or if you get this and get to me before I text you, Hyro might want to go out there and see you. Okay. And now I'm texting you. Okay. All right, so this is basically what we need to do, this AWS EKS configuration. Now, the monster question is going to be whether or not AWS is configured, AWS CLI is configured on this runner. And then the next question is going to be what I need to do to make it work, because I think we'll just try it and see what happens. I think. Because the way AWS works is there are you can apply roles and stuff, and I think the way I have GitLab set up right now is basically it is allowed to execute against the AWS environment. I think all that's already been set up basically. I don't know if that'll work or not. Let's give it a shot and see. And if it doesn't, we'll deal with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this get services, and I'm going to run the AWS EKS config. Obviously, we need to set the region correctly. So I think I defined that over here. Oh, it's actually defined as a variable. And this will be a good chance to show you guys how variables work. And so if I go over here, this is my GitLab, this is the base thing. And if I go to settings, I have this CI/CD down here, and I go there and I have this variables. Now what this is, these are variables that are defined for any projects in this account. And as an example, this AWS region is one of these variables. I've done this because now this region is defined for any jobs that run under this project. So all the branches automatically get these variables like the access key, the account ID, and all this jazz. So I can go over here and basically say, instead of this, I'm going to do that. Oops, that's not what I wanted. That. And what this is going to mean is that when it runs, it's going to automatically read in this region name as a variable, which should get populated automatically when the job runs. And in fact, let's add that to the echo here. Now, again, I like being able to set things so that like I'm kind of validating as part of my process here, and I'll be able to quickly look and see that this AWS region variable is populating, so I'll be able to confirm that. And the other thing is this cluster name here. This needs to be, I need to get that. So let me go get that directly from the source. Now, what this also means is that I probably, since I'm going to be using this cluster name in multiple locations, I probably need to turn it into a variable that I read in as well. But for right now, I'm just going to copy paste it. And here we go. Okay. So theoretically, that should work. And if that works, then I should be able to do my cube. Was that it? Let me go back and look. Yeah, okay. Good services. All right, let's go ahead and submit that. Also, you don't have to don't write like a narrative, but be generally descriptive in your commit messages. That way, if there's ever a question, you can just look at it. You know what it was that you were doing there. If you're committing stuff and your commit messages are a narrative in order to encapsulate everything you committed, you're not committing often enough. You need to be committing after you make very simple, basic changes. We're human, so okay, never mind. Hold on, I've got to send another text message. I'm going to be able to go another 30 minutes or so, then I'm going to have to bail to go meet someone at St. Philip's. All right, so anyway, what I was saying about commits, make sure you try to keep your commits small and commit often and commit short stuff. That way, if there's ever a question about what you did, your commits are just kind of building that history of what it was that you did. Plus, if there's anything that happens, like it is not super uncommon that you lose power, you kick the power plug out, your cat attacks your internet connection or whatever. So there's just tons of things that can happen that can kill your data. So it's kind of like saving frequently when you're working on stuff. Commit often, and commit small stuff. That way it's easier to read, easier to understand what you did in that steps. The same way as like merges. Commits are, I want to make a change, I'm going to try it and see what happens. Merges are, okay, I've done this basic thing and it works, now I'm going to make it part of the whole. So kind of the continuing down the chain, continue that small incremental and saving as you go and documenting as you go kind of approach. It'll make your life easier, trust me. And you still won't do it because, like me, you'll occasionally get on a roll and you won't pay attention and you will write like monolithic type commits that are huge. And I have been there. All right. So AWS command not found. All right. So that means the AWS CLI is not installed in this thing. So how do we normally do this? Get that. Authorized. Oh, okay. Use context. Let's try that. Actually, we will comment that out temporarily. Now, I have not used context before, so let's. Well, path to agent project. I'm not entirely sure what that would be. And that might mean we need to go on a tangent. So let's. I'm just making a reminder to myself right here. Okay. look. Let me see if I can actually connect to this guy. Okay, I didn't think I had that set up yet. Alright, let's go to EKS and let's look at the cluster. So basically what I'm doing, I'm not doing a good job of explaining this, but what I have found is that now we want to use this context, and that appears to be the correct way to do this. And then when I look over here, I see something very similar to that, and it cites this ARN, cluster, blah, 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 quick start, blah, blah, blah. So this ARN is, something that directly comes from AWS, so I should be able to get this. So what I want to do, and actually, this looks like this might work. You know what, let's try this before I do anything else, and let's see. But I need to look up that managed node quick start real quick before I go too far, because I don't think that's actually correct. So, and I also have a tendency to comment out a bunch of stuff early on, just as I'm kind of figuring out what's going on. But I want to look at what is. So I think this is the, managed node quick start. I think that's the name of the node. Let me just assume that that's the case. That looks like that might work. So let me go ahead. Oh, that's EKS control, not Q control. You know what? Let's see what happens. And while that runs, I'm going to pop over here to clusters, and I'm going to look at my cluster. All right. So. Cluster ARN. Actually, this looks like what I'm looking for. Because that format, if you look, it's the ARN, the location, account ID, cluster / and then cluster name. And if I come up here, ARN, EKS. Actually, let's just copy that. Oh, you know what? It doesn't. It does look a little bit different, doesn't it? Because this doesn't say EKS. Might still be it. ARN, AWS, EKS. Oh, okay. So this is one of the scenarios where I haven't done this before, so I'm not entirely sure how this works. So I will need to probably read through this a few times, probably try to duplicate it and see what kind of errors I get. Yeah. So, oh, this is old. Go back. All right, that's kind of what I expected. The EKS control command not found. Yeah, that's what I expected to happen. Okay, So what I want to know is if there is a container, an image that is already configured and set up to do what I need. And kind of what this guy's doing. Oh, see, there you go. That's exactly what I was looking for. Alpine Kates. All right. So let's go fix that. Alpine Kates. And all right. I'm not going to change anything else. We'll just change that. I should have thought of that. I don't know why I didn't even think about using Kates, because that should have been obvious. All right. Pop over here. All right, let that run. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to oh wow, that's got everything. Okay. Oh, there's no latest tag for this image. So I probably messed up there. It's all right. Okay, that means that it's probably going to fail, so I might as well go ahead and fix that and rerun. Yeah, and it failed. Probably because that image doesn't exist. Yep. All right. Try that again. Oh, now I know who Spider Monkey is. You're hosed now, buddy. All right. What was it doing? Oh, yeah. So what I want to know is how does this get configured? Where are the instructions? think I'm back to where I was, so I would need to do this stuff, which means I probably need to set up the AWS CLI. Probably. We'll give it a shot and see what happens. Well, F you, Alpine Kates. It does not look like what I'm looking for. Share it out, save it. Alpine Kates. Still failed. I know there's no latest, so how? Oh, here it is. Okay. Oh, maybe we just need to specify a version. Yeah, that's probably what it is. So 26. That's pretty weird that we've got 128.14 is newer than 129. Oh. Huh. I think their ordering is just wrong. So let's take that. Okay. And if you haven't used Docker before, these are like Docker notations. This basically means it's an Alpine project. Kates is the specific image, and then this is the version number of that image. See all that red? That is very typical for what we're doing here. If you are green every time, you're not trying hard enough. Okay. So basically, my goal probably today, if I'll be getting off here in about 15 minutes, so I can go downtown and meet somebody. Um, but my goal kind of today is to get the pipelines running where they are giving me back information using kubectl. If I don't think I'll get that far because there's almost always problems up until you finally figure it out. But eventually, I want to be able to get that Nginx image deployed on EKS and available. Once it's there, I know I have things in EKS that are accessible. I'll probably then go to try to set up the load balancer so that the load balancer is relaying traffic through the boundary to EKS and resolving as like an application access point. So that's kind of the goal, is to get to the point where whatever I add in the future, I have a process to automatically kind of deploy that thing in the environment. I'm probably not doing it the most efficient way either. I mean, I had thought about splitting the application component out totally away from the Terraform, the infrastructure. And I may still do that at some point. It's just that it's such a small project right now. I don't see any reason to split that out. In my other project, that's how we did it. We had infrastructure, which was to deploy the AWS multiple environments because we had it across several different accounts. And then we had totally separate code that was for managing and deploying the Helm charts and stuff into the environment. So, which tells me, and those were done by people who know this better than I do. So that suggests to me that's probably the right way to do it. And I'm probably being a moron by not doing it their way. But cool. Anyway, so here we go. So AWS region is set to, and then it spits it out, so that worked. Okay. Kubeconfig. So basically, it looks like that sort of kind of worked, and then what I'm getting back out is that it can't read. Oh, wow, okay. You know what? I might. You know what? Okay. I bet you I'm going to have to. I'll double check, but I bet I might have to switch all this up and get the load balancer set up instead, because I bet we can't talk to that. Oh, yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. Okay, hold on a second. So our runner here is on the internet, and because it's on the internet, it can't talk to the cluster because the cluster is not accessible by the internet. So it's trying to reach out to this location. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'll have to think about this. I think I'm going to have to switch it. I think I'm going to have to go set up the load balancer first so that we have a point that we can resolve to. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and call this right here. I'm going to let this go ahead and time out instead of trying to kill it. But yeah, I think that is the problem. We have a cluster that's not accessible from the internet, and I didn't think about the fact that this runner is actually out on the internet reaching back to AWS. And of course, that cluster is not resolvable because it's actually a private IP address, and it's also on the other side of our boundary. So like, we have our infrastructure here. So basically, it's trying to talk to this cluster over here, but it's coming from outside the network in, and that's why it's not working. So what I need to do is set this load balancer up so that it knows the IP address, or just probably set it up using the domain, the DNS name, so that it resolves to whatever the DNS name is, and basically forwards traffic into here. So, just throwing this out there, that means that the load balancer here on the boundary side is going to have a dependency on the cluster over here. When I go in and check, I don't know if I wrote that in there as a dependency or not, but I'll have to add that to the load balancer. So, all right, I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm probably going to do some experiments. I don't know if I'll get to it tomorrow or not, but we'll probably look at getting that load balancer next so that we can talk to the cluster, and then we'll circle back and try this setting up these this Kate stuff later. All right, cool. Thank you, folks, as always. Appreciate everybody hanging out. And because my audio was not absolute garbage, I will go ahead and leave this video up for anyone who wants to reference it later. And for at least a while, and then I'll delete it. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you.